Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. It's NMeade here. Welcome to the beginning of Mario Kart Wii time trial for 2021. Apologies for the big delay here, but we are here today to cover the world record activity for January 2021. January was a huge month with 12 world records across 6 unique tracks, with some huge milestones achieved right at the very beginning of this year. Let's get started. Kicking us off right away on New Year's Day, Luke improved his own N64 Bowser's Castle world record by 10 milliseconds with an ending time of 2:37.28. Luke would go on to improve 2 more times after this later on in January, with a 5 millisecond improvement on January 14th with a time of 2:37.23, and a bigger cut, becoming the first player to achieve a 2:30.6. this time being a 2:30.677 on January 24th. Starting with Luke's 7-8 run, Luke's lap 1 had no major flaws besides the mushroom and the last turn, which was a bit sketchy for Luke. Aside from those 2 parts, it was still good enough for a mid 50.2 lap for lap 1, which is still absurd to see that fast of a lap being driven on lap 1 in of itself, by the way. Lap 2 has some bigger time losses for Luke, with getting a drop chain wheelie on the bridge at the start of lap 2, afterward hitting some of the grass on the exit of the first turn. Some smaller time losses later on would result from a wheelie turn before the downward thwomps and a bad last turn, but everything else during lap 2 was good for Luke. I'd like to really emphasize the grasp that Luke has on this track with how fast he executes his driving. Getting a drop chain here at the bridge loses a large amount of time, and even with that, still being able to improve the world record is incredibly impressive at the current state that this track is at right now, so big props to Luke here. Luke's lap 3 had no huge errors for him apart from bounces on the last bridge before the spiral, and an unfortunate bad turn to end the run, but still enough to clutch out a new world record here. The bridge before the spiral is an underrated part of the track for time gain or time loss at this level now. Just as the beginning bridge of each lap, the bridge before the spiral really has no rhyme or reason behind how to go completely flat with no bounces. With that in mind, you can certainly lose an entire run or a large amount of time if you're not careful here. With really optimizing the turn into the bridge section, you're going into your wheelie a lot sooner compared to years past. With that in mind, the chain wheelie you get before the spiral is more detrimental if you don't get a full chain wheelie here. This is still the fastest way to do this section, but is another classic example of an optimization for one part of a track that either adds in a new chain wheelie or a chain wheelie that normally happens just as you're about to hop for a turn. It happens a bit earlier now. So if you mistime the rechain, it's another section for time loss. Also noteworthy before we head to Luke's 7-3 is that Luke actually tied his new 2:37.28 run 4 days before setting the 2:37.23, with lap splits of 52.22, 54.11, and a new best known split on lap 3 of 50.095, being the first 50.01 shimmer lap hit on N64 Bowser's Castle, which is a massive milestone to hit. Luke has also hit the first 50.11 shimmer for lap 1 here, which again is another massive milestone to hit. Back when I was competing on this track over 10 years ago, I felt a 50.1 on lap 1 and 50.0 on laps 2 and 3 would be a human maximum limit to hit. And it's been really exciting to see someone with true mastery of the game's mechanics take this track to a whole different dimension, raising the standard of this track to something else now at this point. Luke said when he first hit a 50.2 on lap 1 back around April of 2018, he didn't think a 50.1 was possible at the time, as he also never hit a 50.1 lap 2 back then as well. But when he started getting low 50.2s on lap 1 last year, he knew a 50.1 lap 1 was barely feasible, along with a 50.0 on laps 2 and 3. Incredibly impressive, with the best known splits now giving a time of 2:30.378 as of today's upload date. Heading now to Luke's 7-3, Luke hit his fastest lap 1 in a world record run to current day with a 52.15 on lap 1, only 27 milliseconds off of the best known split for lap 1. With this lap, apart from a less than ideal first turn for Luke, this lap practically had no flaws in Luke's perspective. Lap 2 had a half chain wheelie, which is still fairly solid all things considered, but unfortunately Luke had a sizable bounce thereafter, which lost a decent amount of time. In comparison to a flat bridge with no bounces and a full chain wheelie, this lost around 100 milliseconds in comparison according to Luke. Aside from that, the Superman, being the wheelie you do over the staircase, was average for Luke and had an unfortunate bounce on the last turn, which lost close to 50 milliseconds for Luke. The ending spin drift can cost a lot of time if you're not careful, especially at world record standard. Simply making it back onto the track won't suffice compared to an optimal last turn. Showing off the ghost comparison, you can see how much Luke actually loses versus an ideal last turn. Luke 723 is the ghost that is sent far to the left versus the other runs which hug it tight to the right when transitioning back onto the road. The most ideal setup is having an ever so slight left to right angle and doing a very hard spin drift where, if you do everything right like in the comparison here, you maintain as tight of a turn as possible back onto the road and saving a considerable amount of time. The fine little details is what separates good laps to great laps on any track, and this is one of those examples as shown here. Lap 3 in this run had one of the biggest saves I've seen in a world record run. Luke unfortunately had a bad Superman, which happened with the wheelie after the main turbo being a bit delayed. However, this wheelie still made it out in time where he was airborne for a good amount of time of the staircase. Normally when this wheelie is done too late, majority of the time you simply stick to the entire staircase and your run is essentially over. Luke's clutch save was crazy to see in this run, and Luke even comments that he was very surprised this ended up being a new record at the time, with noting the last turn being pretty bad as well, but nonetheless was still good enough for a 5 millisecond improvement and a new world record. Now we head to Luke's last improvement of 2:30.677 this month, which, seeing the digits in of itself, is freaky, setting the first 2:30.6 on this track. Lap 1 was overall pretty good for Luke, with any 50.2 lap 1 being solid enough to run with, noting a few turns could have been better and having a high trick off the last ramp. Lap 2 was a decent lap for having a flat beginning bridge with a half chain wheelie with nice driving, except for a bad line out of the sliding thwomp room, which cost some time in the Superman and the Shroom and the turn after the Shroom spot. Lap 3 had a flat chain wheelie at the bridge and had great driving for Luke, noting the Superman and Shroom spot being very good, although the exit could have been done tighter. Luke mentions being on best known split pace for lap 3 at this point, leading into the spiral entry, having a decent spiral section but unfortunately had a bad exit and had to lose a bit of speed for a recovery for the trick ramp. Having this angle gives you a higher ramp trick than normal and being unable to do the optimal strategy for taking this ramp. Ideally, you have a slight left to right angle being a bit to the right of the midline of the section before the ramp, and you turn hard right as you're hitting the ramp, and even when you're airborne, delay the trick, and these steps combined allows you to get a really low trick, saving a fair amount of time, and you can observe this in most of the other laps in these runs. In comparison, Luke had an early exit from the spiral and was aligned too far to the right as a result, which required wheelie turns to get back to the trick ramp itself. Watching this back again, if Luke had an ideal exit from the spiral and a better last turn, Luke really could have jumped almost directly to a very high 230.5 or a very low 230.6 here. Props to Luke here for keeping composure and being able to see this run out to the very end. Luke comments being originally satisfied to leave the track at a 230.6, mentioning always wanting at least a 230.6 since last year. Luke is still happy with the end time here, but the ending of this run definitely hurt for Luke considering how far ahead he was compared to the last record. With that being said, Luke wants to attempt for a sub 230.650 at least, and referring to when he tied a 237.28 during this time, Luke says he can safely say a 230.4 is a current realistic limit here for him, which I completely agree. If anyone is equipped to get a monster time like that, it is definitely Luke. Luke still has a commanding lead well over half a second ahead of tied second worldwide, being almost exactly 600 milliseconds ahead. I originally predicted Luke's 2:37.38 would stand for quite some time and wouldn't go down during 2021, but I was happily proven wrong right at the very beginning of this year. Even with that said, I wouldn't be surprised if it's several years before another player beats that original 2:37.38 mark. Massive props and congrats once more to you, Luke, and best of luck when you decide to grind this down further. Next up, we have some activity on GCN Waluigi Stadium, having improvements in both categories during January. Starting off on the no glitch category on January 2nd, Connor reclaimed the world record from Ace by 10 milliseconds with a time of 1:48.433. Connor got the world record for the first time on GCN Waluigi Stadium back in November of 2019 with a 1:48.614. And Ace reclaimed the world record back in April of 2020 with the previous 1:48.443 that Connor beat during January. It's crazy to think there's only been 5 new world records on this category for GCN Waluigi Stadium since Totem's 1:48.861 set way back in July of 2013, with Connor and Ace being the only players who have beat Totem's original old world record here. For Connor's new run, Connor mentions that there was not much to say about this run in particular, apart from lap 1 being pretty average and lap 2 being really solid overall. I'd like to really highlight the accomplishments set in Connor's new time here for lap 2, as Connor's new record here in January is the first time we have seen a 35-second one-stream lap in a run to current day, with Connor's 35.919 lap 2 being only 23 milliseconds off of a new best known split. Simply getting a 36-second one-stream lap on this track in of itself, even with going for the turn skip, is a very difficult task, and seeing a 35-second lap is really ridiculous. Ace's lap 2 in his former world record was an impressive 36.033, and Connor was slightly behind entering lap 2, making this comparison really interesting to watch. You can really see all of the tiny optimizations that can make a lap like this possible. One of the biggest time losses noted in this comparison was Connor's wall bounce lost a bit of time compared to Ace's. Simply making the down trick wall bounce is not enough at this level, with really optimizing how early you collide with the wall so you land earlier and have more time in the trick boost and really launching you into the mud for the mushroom thereafter. Honestly, this entire comparison between the two runs is very exciting to watch, the tug of war back and forth, with gaining and losing time versus each other. Connor had an incredibly clean turn skip lap 3 and had a decent lead ahead, but unfortunately didn't get the wheelie out in time for the chain drift and was at 84 km per hour instead of max speed 97 km per hour. Ace's run had unfortunate airtime on the last turn mound and a bad last trick landing before the finish line, and Connor kept composed enough to get out the improvement in the end, which Connor is glad to get this one back again. Connor feels that both himself and Ace can get the record down to at least a 1:48.2 if both Ace and Connor were to pick this up again and grind it out. Connor says a 1:47 here is the ultimate goal and thinks it will be done, but is not sure who will be insane enough to give it a try. The current best known splits give a time of 1:47.921, so it is technically feasible. It'll be exciting to see any further activity here in the future. As mentioned previously, there have only been 5 new world records for this category of GCN Waluigi Stadium since 2013, 8 years now, and only Ace and Connor have beaten Totem's original 1:48.861. With that in mind, only time will tell to see when this will be lowered further, and by who. If Connor doesn't return here for some time, and Ace doesn't come back to try again, I could definitely see this record sitting for quite a long time. Only time will tell. Big congrats to you, Connor, once more for your record here and achieving the epic 35-second one shimmer in the world record run. Heading now to the glitch activity on GCN Waluigi Stadium during January, Core sets his first world record in Mario Kart Wii in style on one of the hardest glitches in the game. On January 12th, Core beat Logan's previous world record by 475 milliseconds and gets the first 143 on GCN Waluigi Stadium, with a time of 1:43.804. 9 days later, Logan will come back and reclaim the world record from Core, lowering the time by 331 milliseconds on January 21st, with a time of 1:43.473. Both of these records are very exciting for GCN Waluigi Stadium glitch this month. Core's world record was the first world record that gets the shroomless hop in a world record run, and Logan being the second with his improvement later in January. I'd like to also give a shout out to current third worldwide Hunter, who is, to my knowledge, the first player to get this strategy in a run, but missed the world record by less than 200 milliseconds. What makes this strategy so significant, apart from how cool it looks and how difficult it is, performing this strategy allows you to save one extra mushroom for the rest of the run. If you opt to not go for a second glitch, which at this point these runs are still 1-for-3 glitch runs, you can use the mushroom to cut off the normal mud cut, which saves at least 1 second. Core says he started attempting this glitch in general as soon as it was found, and got some close attempts but never ended up doing it in the end. Core took a break from the game for a couple of months, and when returning, started grinding the glitch once more. Core eventually set a run with the glitch using a mushroom for the hop, and was done with the track despite wanting to improve it. This inspired Core to try it out, and realized he had potential to get the world record with it if he kept grinding it out, and a few days later ended up setting the record we see now. Lap 1 for Core was okay with playing the checkpoint a little bit safe, noting he only crossed it by a tiny amount and wasn't sure if the lap would have counted. Lap 2 was the worst lap of the run for Core, having the biggest slip up at the zipper section, and thought he didn't have a chance for world record at this point. However, lap 3 was the best lap for Core, and wasn't sure how he drove this lap under such pressure at this point. Core notes this lap is still 400 milliseconds behind his personal best split, but remains one of the only 39-second shroomless laps he's driven. And in the end, the driving on lap 3 made up enough for the mistakes on lap 2, being good enough for a new world record here. Core mentions this lap 1 is the only lap 1 he's done with 2 mushrooms, being his own personal best split, and the best known split overall for the 2-1-0 mushroom strategy now as well. And says he has set 38.2 laps with a mushroom, and 39.5 laps without a mushroom for normal driving laps thereafter. Core doesn't plan on coming back to the track for a while, but says he may return one day, with the record still being pretty unoptimized, and has even considered trying the Bowser Bike 2, although using this is significantly harder. It'd be really exciting to see someone give the Bowser Bike a serious shot here, as although with it being significantly harder as Core mentions, it is still possible to pull off, and would yield a big time save for the no glitch driving afterward too. Massive congrats on setting your first world record, Core, on one of the hardest feats to pull off in the game. Massively impressive. Best of luck for your future plans, if and when you decide to pick this up once more. Heading now to Logan's improvement, Logan had an epic story for setting this one. Logan says he was actually in a call with Sword and was doing attempts on this track while getting ready to play Fall Guys. And on Logan's 5th attempt, he got a bypass that was decent enough to have a chance at making the glitch, and clutched a frame perfect hop on this attempt, which shocked Logan when making it. Logan goes on to say that the driving thereafter was awful for him, although understandable for him, as he never touched a bullet bike on this track since July of last year, and defines this run as a fluke run, but nonetheless was still good enough to clutch out, reclaiming the world record here in the end. Not gonna lie, that is an awesome world record story, casually preparing to start playing an entirely different game and rolling up and setting a new world record on, of all tracks and categories, being this one. Massive props here, Logan. You can really get a sense for the variability of saving or losing a massive amount of time with driving this track normally with the bullet bike in this comparison here. The bullet bike is slower than the Bowser bike and is much lighter, getting massive airtime almost anywhere you're airborne, and the super sharp drift making a lot of these turns very awkward. The singular trick Logan goes for on the zippers lap 2 helped him catch up considerably, Perhaps he was going for a turn skip, but even then this really helped close the gap between himself and Core. Logan's lap 3 was very clean from the start, honestly having a small amount of errors, also considering the nerves of course. One of the most unnerving things to watch but also being so clutch is the very last trick in the end. Look at how close Logan's run was to being ended literally right in front of the line. That had to have been the smallest amount of pixels off of disaster here, but thankfully Logan was able to have the major clutch play and finish this one out. I was curious to see how much harder doing the shroomless hop is compared to the shroom method, and what I found was really interesting. Logan shares that the shroomless hop is actually the same difficulty as doing it with the shroom, and the only reason why he didn't go for this previously is because he assumed this was harder to do originally. That's incredible to me, and thinking on it some more, it does make sense. From what I remember, you have a 1 frame timing to get the hop out to make this work, and potentially 2 frames depending on where you land on the fence and the angle you hit it at. Since the window for timing the hop is so tight, it would make some sense that either strategy would be just as difficult as the other one for the sake of timing. I wouldn't be surprised if players eventually start grinding for 2 for 3 glitch attempts now with this in mind. Saving the extra mushroom here helped lower this record by close to a full second already, and surely more time can come from further optimizing 1 for 3 attempts, but with having the extra mushroom in mind, it's going to be a crazy day when someone finally goes for a 2 for 3 attempt here and pull it off. Whether it's Logan, Core, or anyone else, there is much more to come for GCN Waluigi Stadium glitch, I'm sure. Hats off again to you, Logan, for continuing your glitching prowess and adapting to the playing field swiftly. And best of luck and future improvements here when you decide to pick this one up again. Now we head to another very technique heavy track, DK Summit. Close to almost exactly 1 year later, Blake finally pulls through with a world record improvement of 188 milliseconds over his previous world record of 145.456 on January 30th, 2020, with a 145.268 on January 10th. Blake has been streaming and making more attempts, upping the frequency as 2020 went on, with many heartbreaking fails on lap 3 and really driving down the best known splits by a considerable margin. Blake's current best splits are the best known splits overall for the track, with a total time for the best known splits being a 143.865. Quite a distance away from where the current record stands, but there are so many layers behind why that is. Heading into the cannon each lap is pretty much your only real time of calmness in runs here. Upon landing, you're basically executing movement literally until the finish line. The 2 mini mound tricks here is actually a bit more challenging than it seems, with the spatial awareness needed to not overturn to the right to get a low second trick and many other variables that can go wrong. Afterward, the optimal way of taking the mound tricks is being able to be at the highest speed possible for as long as possible. You can get increased speed by getting multiple tricks, but if you're able to generate a wheelie just before each mound, depending on how you land into each one, you can get your top speed even higher and lunge forward quicker. This is far more apparent if you watch the tool assisted speedruns of this track, where in this entire stretch, they almost never drop below around the 150 km/h mark in this entire stretch. Afterward, where you get your last mound trick is incredibly important for doing the shortcut afterwards. If you land too far forward, the trick boost will not wear out in time to do the slight braking and maneuvering that Blake does for what's known as the Jimmy cut, where you essentially drift off the first chasm and make a precisely timed hop upon landing on the very lip before the second chasm to be launched to the left, preserving a fair amount of speed and land on the other side. Much of the time save really comes from how fast you do the first part of the Jimmy cut, with Blake barely braking at all now with how far he's pushed the limits of pulling the shortcut off now. The second half of the time save for this shortcut really falls down to, from what I can understand, is where you land on this lip here and when you time the hop. Sometimes in Blake's streams, he kind of comments in a questioning tone saying 84, which refers to maintaining 84 km/h of speed with a perfectly timed hop. Blake is around the 81 to 80 km/h range on lap 1, with his former record catching up here. On lap 2, Blake got the perfect 84 km/h hop timing and catches up a decent amount before the zippers. And on lap 3, Blake got in the mid 60 km/h range with the hop, but was still far enough to clutch out the improvement even with that in mind. I am still of the opinion that simply pulling this off is one of the most challenging techniques to do in the game, let alone optimizing it as Blake has done now. The ending zipper sections before the finish line is both an unnerving section doing the wheelie strategies with the shy guys around depending on the pace of each lap, and the last corner being infamous for not allowing a trick to come out. It happens to all of us, including this new world record run and former world record runs for most of the game's history. Blake's lap 2 still ended up being a low 34.9, even with missing the entire last trick with a decent recovery afterward. I'm sure this lap 2 would have been considerably faster if he was able to get this trick out. And with that, we are at the finish line with a few seconds of a mental reset before you do this all over again for laps 2 and 3. Even with this entire description, this truly only skims the surface of what really goes into this track at this level, and as to why it is so incredibly challenging to complete runs here with all the current strategies. Throughout the entire comparison of Blake's former world record and his new world record, you can really appreciate each part of the track with the massive comeback potential if something goes wrong. From higher mound tricks to a slower Jimmy cut, to even missing the entire last trick. At this point, everyone's eyes are on the target of getting the first sub 145 and getting a 144 here. And in Blake's own words, the time for talk is over. We are so incredibly close to the 144, and the only question is this: will you be there when it happens? Watch Blake's stream of his world record attempts live at twitch.tv/DKSC4Life. I'd highly recommend following Blake's stream and watching his attempts, which are always exciting to watch, as well as all the other world record holders that are highlighted in this monthly series. Everyone's stream will be in the description below, along with the Mario Kart Wii directory over on Twitch to follow and catch more of the live attempts there. Biggest of congrats for your nearly year-long effort paying off to improve your time once more, Blake. And best of luck on getting the job done with the first 144 in the future. Mario Kart Wii history was made on January 13th. Arthur becomes the first player to successfully glitch Rainbow Road, beating the no glitch record by over 10 seconds with a time of 2:14.677. It is amazing to even be saying those words honestly. For so long it seemed like a hopeless endeavor after a point with many players trying this absurdly difficult ultra shortcut where players would get somewhat close to getting the inputs correctly to continually hitting the out of bounds plane once they were airborne, or getting decently close to the other side and never clearing the gap, and eventually giving up on the task. The story of Rainbow Road glitch is a fascinating one. This glitch was performed in Tool Assist several years ago with using the spear, and even with the spear it required more than one mushroom to clear the gap, meaning only a 1-for-3 glitch run was possible at the time. There was a big breakthrough when in late 2020, CF was able to clear the gap with the Quacker, this time only using one mushroom in the process. Although this yielded a no lap count at the time, and later with the help of Mario and the Task Labs gang, they were able to successfully do a one shimmer Rainbow Road glitch, proving it can be done 3-for-3. This did something bigger for RTA runners. The Quacker became the solution for runners to make this more humanly feasible, as the Quacker gets higher bounces. Even in my mind for so long when I thought about glitching this track, I really thought the spear was the only way to go for this, thinking you need the absolute fastest vehicle to make you travel the furthest distance to the other side. Who would have ever thought that the Quacker would have been the solution after all this time? Arthur's story with Rainbow Road glitch actually starts before this discovery. Arthur says that a few years earlier, when the glitch was newly discovered overall with the spear, he started attempts. But it wouldn't be until 2019 when he would come back to the game and he started serious attempts for it. Arthur mentions he eventually gave up because it was too hard with the spear, with this being a good ways before the Quacker discovery in late 2020, and Arthur had other goals on other tracks to accomplish. Arthur's inspiration was reinvigorated after the Quacker strategy discovery by CF in late 2020, and he started attempting this once more. Arthur would pull off this legendary feat live on stream after an incredibly long live stream of over 8 hours, but most of that stream was actually trying N64 Sherbet Land glitch runs to improve his world record there, Arthur mentions. The session he had for that track was actually good, making that glitch more than 20 times beating his record so far. After that 8-hour grind, Arthur became bored and stopped, and decided to give some quick attempts at Rainbow Road after Logan asked for help with how Arthur was able to reach checkpoint 0 with what Arthur calls the neutral glide strategy that gives you more air and momentum, crossing this line that represents how far back you need to be for the lap to count if he did land on the other side. And during one miraculous attempt, it happens out of nowhere, and we see the final result here. When Arthur landed, he didn't think the lap was going to count because the Lakitu showed up, but then the Lakitu eventually flew away and started to realize what was about to happen. And once he saw the Lakitu return on his screen, but indicating he's now on lap 2, Arthur says his heart was very appropriately racing so hard and he hadn't yet realized what had just happened. And just for context here, this isn't the first time that Arthur made the landing on the other side, as he had 2 other attempts that landed on the other side, and notes he crossed the line at around 20 or 21 seconds on those attempts, and mentions lap 1 of course can be improved by a few seconds for future attempts. The fact that Arthur didn't fall off the rest of this run is pretty epic if you ask me, with Arthur saying he as well calls it a miracle considering how much his body was shaking. On arguably the most iconic and recognizable Mario Kart track for all Mario Karts if you ask anyone about this game, Arthur completed the job here on January 13th, cementing himself in the record books. I'm sure almost all of you have already watched these 2 videos, but definitely give Summoning Salt's videos on the history of the Ultra Shortcut a watch, as he just recently released a second one a week ago with some of the more recent crazy discoveries and accomplishments in this game, which also includes Rainbow Road. Arthur gives a big shout out to Catfish aka CF and Mario for greatly helping Arthur in this journey for pulling this off. Major hats off to the task community, as once more this is another classic example of the enthusiasm and support between both the RTA runners and the task community, pushing the game's standards further and doing what was the unthinkable in years past. Arthur's first 2 world records for Mario Kart Wii is doing the incredibly difficult 2-for-3 glitch category of N64 Sherbet Land, now followed by being the first player to ever pull off the Rainbow Road glitch in real time. I was curious to see what Arthur has in store next, and Arthur says as far as Rainbow Road is concerned, he does want to go for his glitch again, having a goal to sub 210 here. So perhaps we will see another improvement here sooner than we think at this point. Additionally, Arthur is currently trying to be the first player to pull off a 3-for-3 glitch run on GCN Peach Beach, and being the first player to get the sub 1 minute mark there, being confident to meet that standard and pull it off. After that, Arthur wants to try the N64 Bowser's Castle glitch, GCN Waluigi Stadium glitch, improve his N64 Sherbet Land glitch world record, essentially all the crazy stuff Arthur says. Along with this, Arthur wants to improve his driving on the other no glitch categories for tracks, so you may be doing less glitch categories during the year, but we will see what happens from here. It cannot be understated the biggest up props and congratulations to Arthur for his legendary feat that's been made, and extending the sentiment further to the entire community. This has been quite the way to start off 2021 for Mario Kart at large, and with Arthur's plans, we may see more down the line in the future. Major congratulations, Arthur. Next up, we had exciting developments over on Dry Dry Ruins. Justin will get the world record on this track for the first time on January 16th, beating Luke's previous world record by 36 milliseconds, with a time of 1:47.137. 9 days later, on January 25th, Justin had another improvement, this time by 23 milliseconds, getting closer to the 1:46 mark, with a time of 1:47.114. Justin pulls out a new strategy in the beginning of laps 1 and 2 with a different way of doing the sand hop. Normally you drift right to where the sand starts to turn darker, release your main turbo and hop to clear the gap. Or you could release your main turbo into a wheelie and hop at the same line of sand in the past. Justin does something different here, completely releasing the first main turbo very early and then starts another drift, and through the right angle and analog stick movement can soar through the air in a drift. Upon landing, Justin can complete the drift for the main turbo and be set for the following turn. Justin says this hopless sand hop method should save around 50 milliseconds per lap compared to the old method. Justin knows that this is not as consistent as the old method, but in his experience the time save is worth it because you don't need to worry about sticking after the landing, which is something you need to rely on when doing the old method. To explain this, if you do the hop with the old method too early and do not travel far enough, you are prone to having the back wheel barely clipping the heavy sand upon landing, which is an unfortunate run ender when this happens. In the 1:47.137, Justin goes for the tomb exit wheelie strategy on more than one lap, going for it on lap 2, but unfortunately missed the wheelie before exiting, losing a substantial amount of time. Justin still remained composed and saw this run out to the very end. And the very end of this run is one of the most clutch endings to any world record run I've watched before. Justin was a fair amount behind Luke just before exiting the tomb, and Justin pulls off the tomb exit wheelie strategy but on the right side and saves a huge amount of time to clutch out a new world record here. Justin says he actually planned and attempted doing the tomb exit on the right side on lap 3 prior to this run, mentioning he has only gone for it on bad paces to this point. Justin wanted to emphasize an important detail for his entire sequence, being this mini re-hop before the lip of the shrimless cut at the very end. Justin says this wasn't done due to making this easier, but it was actually substantially faster to do so. By doing the hop, this makes it so it prolongs the wheelie, which lasts after crossing the finish line. Justin says if he didn't do this re-hop, the wheelie would have dropped before the finish line, and more than likely, this wouldn't have been the world record run as a result. Justin shares further that this is much faster to do on lap 3 compared to the other laps, since you've already finished the race, so you don't have to worry about the alignment and chain into the following turn like in the previous laps. What an epic save in the end here. I've rewatched this a fair amount of times and can't get over how clutch this was. Job well done, Justin. For Justin's 1:47.114, Justin says he's quite disappointed in this run because it was his best pace to this point and sort of threw it away for mediocre driving, and decided to not go for the shrimless cut on lap 3. Justin says that although it's still a new world record, which is always nice, in hindsight he wishes he went for the shrimless cut. Justin says he knows for a fact he can get an even better pace than this, and can definitely get something more than just a 1:46 here. I would like to highlight that Justin had an incredibly impressive backup save for both laps 2 and 3 during this run. He unfortunately doesn't get the slip drift that you go for before the wall glitch on laps 2 and 3, and has to quickly manually charge a main turbo and still maintain a proper alignment for the wall glitch to even work. And he may not notice it right away, but Justin does the tiniest micro adjustment with a re-hop to the left to get a proper angle for this to work. It cannot be understated how difficult this actually is to not only charge the main turbo like this, but have the quick reaction time to make the wall glitch itself work in any type of way after this happening. Even with this happening on laps 2 and 3, this is Justin's best pace as mentioned previously, and it's the current best known pace into lap 3 as well. The best known splits here currently give a time of 1:46.591, and I'm sure this can go down a bit further with more grinding in the future, especially with Justin mentioning he's capable of getting more than simply a 1:46. Hats off to Justin for further pushing along the meta change, with Luke paving the way of introducing the tomb exit strategy in runs for one lap, and Justin continuing the meta change on attempting it for more than one lap, and introducing the new hopless sand hop strategy in runs now. This is how the standard for tracks and gameplay is elevated. It always takes just one player to start attempting something new that hasn't been attempted for runs yet, and once it's pulled off, eventually other players in the field adapt to the changes and the overall standard of times improve down the line. I'm sure we have the first 146 in store in the future, so congratulations once more here, Justin, and best of luck on future attempts here. Ending the month of January, we head now to Wario's Gold Mine glitch. On January 20th, Logan would reclaim Wario's Gold Mine from McRaven by 4 milliseconds, with a time of 32.075. And just 4 days later, on January 24th, Logan had a bigger time cut this time, and barely misses the first 31-second time for Wario's Gold Mine, setting a 32.005. Logan mentions that neither of these runs were really spectacular for him. For the 32.075, it had bad bounces from the pipe all 3 laps for Logan. However, the run had great fence hits, which made it the record in the end. And for those who aren't sure why you randomly just hop off the wall and turn around and go forward, instead of just going right to the finish line from the bridge, this is because you need to hit the last key checkpoint on the track to make the game think you've completed the lap up until this point for the lap to count. Spin drifting off the wall carries your momentum just far enough into the tunnel to marginally hit the last key checkpoint to make this work. Doing this optimally includes doing the spin drift as early as you can while clearing the distance to hit the last key checkpoint. And if you think about it, you can do this a bit further back to guarantee a lap count, but doing so of course loses time since you're traveling further back. These types of optimizations are crucial for lowering the time where it is right now, which explains Logan's feedback of the fence clips being great in this run, which really helped make this run the way it is despite the bad pipe bounces. The 32.005 was a bit more solid for Logan on the pipe bounces, but notes is still very sloppy overall. Lap 3 had a bad bounce and a bad fence hit, making him miss out on roughly a 31.8 time. Considering just how short of a category this is, being just barely over 30 seconds for 3 full laps, these details really are the difference on making bigger leaps at this point. Compare this to a track that's say a minute and a half or over 2 minutes long for 3 laps. The absolute smallest detail not optimized can be the deciding factor between a new world record and also a big milestone sub like getting a 31-second time will be. The best known splits went down by a fair amount, especially during January, now totaling a low 31-second time of 31.408. Logan says he doesn't do much different on attempts here compared to April of last year, but the overall consistency has improved. Getting a pipe bounce comes down to having a good spin drift off the ledge and a perfect hop timing off the pipe, which he believes is around 2-ish frames to get the hop out. This requires the back tire to hit a really specific spot to get shot up at the right momentum, as if you fall too short, you'll get shot up instantly and most likely get rejected back down. And if you fly too far, you miss the crevice of the pipe and have no chance at making it. Apart from really optimizing the pipe bounces, Logan says the hard spin drift for the fence hit and a perfect standstill main turbo release is his biggest time save if the pipe bounce is not working as desired. What I also noticed is that Logan was able to get 3 for 3 clean drifts from under the road instead of needing to manually hop when breaking through the bridge to charge the main turbo, saving time, especially versus McRaven's former world record, which got the hop out to charge the main turbo on laps 2 and 3. With Logan reclaiming Wario's Gold Mine, Logan reaches his new peak of 9 world records at once, with an incredibly impressive resume holding essentially almost half of all the shortcut / glitch categories for Mario Kart Wii and GCN DK Mountain No Glitch as well. Logan has really expanded his skill set and mastery for the game from first getting GCN DK Mountain Glitch and pushing that down back in 2018 and early 2019. Absolute massive props and congrats for your consistent efforts paying off and continuing to push your limits on so many tracks, Logan. Best of luck on finishing the job for the 31-second time here in the future. The first month of 2021 Mario Kart Wii time trials was beyond an exciting month after going through all the activity in January, with 12 world records to kick us off for the new year. February has shaped up to be another insanely exciting month following up the mighty month that January was, with some huge developments and accomplishments. And I look forward to covering February's activity very soon. Once more, apologies for the big delay on January's activity being covered. February's activity will be up more promptly very soon. Before we end this video, I want to give a shout out to the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe community, who have come together and have started their own world record review series just like this one, but for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe world record activity. They have covered the 150cc and 200cc world record activity for January 2021. I'll have those linked in the description below, and I encourage you guys to check it out and support our entire Mario Kart community. If you have enjoyed this series for Mario Kart Wii, you'll certainly enjoy it for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. I have no experience for time trialing and let alone playing the game for an extended period of time for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and I've really learned a lot already, and I'm really enjoying what they have done so far. With all that said, thank you as always for watching and supporting the channel, and I hope you continue to enjoy the videos uploaded here. I will see you all very soon when we review the world record activity for February 2021. Take care.